Hello everybody, thank you for tuning into my first ever video on the channel. My name is Ty, and today we're going to be talking about Stranger Things Season 5, the brand new and final Stranger Things season that just released. As you guys can see, got my Hawkins sweatshirt on here, and I'm just ready to talk about this season because this is my favorite show ever. I just want to make that very clear in case you guys think I'm biased or whatever, but it's not really that I'm biased. I'm just a fan like millions of other people. And I went into this season very excited, obviously, especially because I think Season 4 might have been the best season of the show. Kind of flip-flop back and forth, but either way, it's kind of like this part 1, part 2 scenario, almost like Mission Impossible when it comes to 7 and 8, where, yeah, sure, it's been a show that's had multiple seasons, of course, that link into each other, but it really feels like Season 4 ties to Season 5 directly because of the entire Vecna storyline, the fact that we were almost left on like a cliffhanger that's meant to lead into like this final 2-part battle between the two seasons. So Season 4 was kind of like the setup, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. And of course, we did get a lot of payoff, a lot of really insane stuff in there. But Season 5 was going to truly be the payoff. The send-off not just to like this storyline and the Vecna storyline, but just as a whole, because again, this was the final season of the show. But did it live up to all this hype? Quite honestly, I want to start off by saying one thing. I was a bit nervous going in because I feel like there was just so much pressure on the shoulders of this show. Naturally so, because of the fact that it's so popular. How are we going to wrap up this story in a satisfying way? Are they going to play it safe? Are they going to go risk it all like Game of Thrones and just completely crumble? I went into this thinking, hey, no matter what they do in this final season, if it's just kind of on the weaker side or if it's just incredible, obviously if it's incredible for what I'm about to say, I'm still going to love this show because of the fact that I feel like I just love the characters, and unless they did something absolutely nuclear to just like completely decimate everyone's character, like character assassinations across the board, the plot ended up being like a D&D game or something like that, I would have absolutely went crazy because it would have just ruined the entire show. But even if it was just a bad season of television and maybe, you know, I just didn't really like the way that they wrapped everything up, it wasn't super satisfying, it would not take away from those first 4 seasons. Again, unless they just absolutely completely dropped to the ball. But did Season 5 do that? Let me just kind of hit you with like my thesis here, kind of like my main summary. I think Season 5 of Stranger Things is the worst season of the show, but I'm not even mad about it because I still think it's a really good season of television and a really good Stranger Things season. It has plenty of faults, and I could completely admit that since I love this show so much, I do give it more grace and I am more forgiving. But with that being said, we're going to be tearing the show apart, don't get me wrong, for some of the stupid things that I think the show does, because I'm not afraid to make fun of or like judge my favorite stuff. It's just that naturally I am going to like things more, even if there are some silly things. But again, I think this is the worst season, but I am not mad about it. And again, we're going to dive into each volume individually, the show as a whole, and I just finished the finale, okay, like maybe an hour and a half ago, so quite honestly, I'm off of a high. One thing I will say about Season 5 is that I do think that episodes 1 to 7 are pretty rough, and there's a lot of missteps, but the finale is one of the best episodes of the entire show. And I think that's the real important message I need to get across here, is that sure, maybe it wasn't set up perfectly, maybe there was some things that were a bit awkward that we're going to be diving into, but they nailed the important thing with this season. Because let's say that episodes 1 to 7 were great, and then episode 8 was bad, even though like that's like 80% of the season being good, you needed to nail the finale of the final season. And they did. And again, it's not just good enough. I don't think they just like landed the ship or landed the plane. I think it's literally one of the best episodes of the show. And that's saying a lot because of the fact that I feel like something like Breaking Bad, right? And I don't mean to compare shows, and I am not dissing Breaking Bad. It's literally one of the greatest shows of all time. What's so great about Breaking Bad is that, yes, it does have some really good episodes, like Felina, and I can't think of some of the other ones off the top of my head, but it's more of an arc-based show, where I feel like there aren't too many memorable episodes, and I'm not saying that it's like a bad show or anything. I just mean episodes that, like, individually are just completely, like, incredible, and they've given us some of the greatest TV shows of all time, like, episodes. But all I'm saying is that something like Stranger Things, I think what it has always done so well is that it's given us great seasons, a great show, obviously, because now it's completed, but also so many great individual episodes. And I know maybe that's not necessarily so important, but you got to keep in mind that's why shows are shows, because of the fact that they're telling a larger story typically, and you've got to have good starts and endings to each little hour or 45-minute or 30-minute chunk that you're going to be presenting your audience with. And that's what a show is, obviously. Whereas a movie is going to be just 2 hours straight up. The Stranger Things finale is 2 hours long, but it still is an episode, obviously. And I just think that it works so well. And that's one of its greatest strengths just as a show as a whole. I don't really want to dive into any of the other seasons, but I feel like I've been kind of just beating around the bush here. Let's dive into season 5. What did season 5 do super well, and what did it kind of just drop the ball on, admittedly? I'm trying to think what I really want to start here with, but I think I'll just start off with the positives. First of all, we're back in Hawkins. I like our transition from season 4 to season 5. By the way, I'm going to be going into spoilers here because at this point, the whole show's out, and this is the only time I'm practically going to ever be able to talk about Stranger Things, so sorry. But we pick up right after season 4. Saw some people complaining about how at the end of season 4, it was like there's a war going on. I think they actually transitioned really well. Love that like Rockin' Robin intro sequence where it's sort of exposition-y, but it makes sense because she's on the radio station. I love the setup of this world. This is the first season where it feels like everyone's kind of on the same page, and there's less of a mystery. And my favorite part of Stranger Things has always been like the mystery and the conspiracy, and how in each season there's something that we've got to figure out. And I feel like the writers have always been like one step ahead of the audience, which is so important because you need smart writers, especially for a show like this that's kind of relying on that mystery and that intrigue on top of like the vibes and, you know, the nostalgic feeling. But this is the first season, again, where it feels like everyone knows what's going on. There's literally a team, like the party, right? They're doing the crawls to the Upside Down, right? They know what's going on with Eleven, the fact that they have to keep her safe. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone's aware. There isn't really some grand mystery at stake for the most part. It just feels like, hey, this is just a war season. Like, everything's already been set up over the course of 4 seasons, whether it's Will Byers going missing, Will Byers being taken over, the Russians in season 3, or the Vecna mystery in season 4, which I think might be the most enticing mystery. Like, yes, season 1 was very interesting, but the whole Vecna thing was so complex, and the massacre at Hawkins' lab, and all of the backstory stuff, some ridiculous storytelling. But I'm not here to talk about season 4, we're talking about season 5. So again, it was different. It was a different season for that same reason. And I think with this season, one of its biggest faults is the fact that I do feel like we're kind of treading, our tires are spinning in the mud, I should say, where there isn't that much of a mystery, so there isn't really that much going on. Like, yes, obviously we have a plot, right? We have the shock jock thing, and then we have the turbo trap stuff, which I just thought was awesome. Obviously in Sorcerer, Will gets his powers, but I feel like from the start, it was like, okay, we need to defeat Vecna, and we're kind of just slowly getting there, and at the end, we defeat Vecna. Like, that was kind of the only, like, thing really going on overall. Yes, we have, like, the Holly stuff, but that's also tied into that, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute, but I still feel like it was a very straightforward season, which I kind of liked and also disliked, and I feel like I kind of just explained why, to where it just feels like this was a situation where it was more about the destination than the journey, whereas it's almost been flipped on its head for every other season. It's always been about the journey. How are we going to get to where we're going to end up getting? It was never really about, like, the ending grand reveal, you know what I mean? Obviously, at, like, something like the end of season 2, okay, Elle closes the gate. But that wasn't really the most interesting part of season 2. The most interesting part was, what are these tunnels? Wait, there's tunnels? What's happening to Will? Why is he being possessed? What do you mean he likes it cold? Like, is he being taken over by some type of demon or something, like the Mind Flayer? That was what was so interesting. And again, it feels like we don't have that in season 5. But that was okay, because let's get into some more of the positives. The cast has expanded. You've got Vicky in a more prominent role. I really like her. You've got Dr. K, who I think is like an okay character, but I like this military state that Hawkins is in. I feel like it makes it a bit more of like a scarier place, and it feels like there's a bit more pressure being applied to the gang. And again, one of my biggest issues is that while I did say there's pressure, and while I did say things are a bit more straightforward, because of that very reason, I think this is where my biggest problem sort of starts to show with the show, no pun intended. I feel like there's just no real sense of stakes and urgency, despite the fact that clearly on paper, the stakes literally could not be higher. In the other seasons, season one's stakes were that there's one kid missing. I don't want to say who cares, but obviously we get to know Will, right? But it's like, okay, a kid went missing. It's a real shame, right? You feel horrible, but it's not like the world was going to end. Now we're in world-ending territory, and everyone knows what's going on. But for some reason, it felt the most weightless out of any season, in my opinion. And it's weird because I feel like I did care more about that one kid that was missing rather than something like season 5 where it just feels too safe a lot of the time. And I think one of the key reasons is that they didn't kill anybody early on. I think they really, really needed to make somebody bite the dust early on. I love someone like Murray, but even just to have someone like him get killed, maybe episode 2 or 3, it would have done wonders. And, I don't want to get there yet, but as we get into the finale, yes, there was a big death essentially, but the problem is there's no redeeming that big death because I didn't feel the weight of it throughout the entire season. It didn't feel like, oh my God, anybody could die. In season 4, a great example of this is that even though they were minor characters, episode 1, you're introduced to Chrissy. Just like a cute little cheerleader character, right? She's kind of like walking around. She's Eddie's girl, I guess. They have like a thing, some chemistry. You don't think she's going to die? Oh, maybe she's going to be like a reoccurring character this season. Dies the end of episode 1. Bang, that's it. Fred, Nancy's little friend there. Just some random side character that's added in. Bam, he dies. The thing is, even though they weren't that important, we got some time to get to know them a little bit. But we started to realize, wait, that could be any of the characters that we care about. Like Max, for example, right? There was none of that in this season. Because who's the one person in this season that's really at risk? Well, there's 2, I guess. Holly Wheeler. I really enjoy the trippy nature of what we did with Holly Wheeler. She's seeing this fake figure, Mr. What's-It? And that's where the mystery starts to kick in. The mystery element I said that I loved. But I feel like it was so obvious as to what was really going on. There wasn't much of a mystery. And then once we learned Vecna's plan, it was, okay. It's like, okay, I need these kids because they're weak. Okay, decent reveal. And I feel like we got pretty good reveals over the course of the season. But I don't know why in our final season, we would put so much time towards a brand new character. Sure, she showed up as a baby in the other seasons, but she literally was just completely irrelevant the entire show. Now, bang, you're a main character. I really like Nell Fisher, awesome performance, and I like Holly's character, and I actually kind of like the story she was on. I just wonder if maybe we should have kind of put more focus on other characters, and like I was just talking about characters being in danger, the other character technically is Eleven, who's always been in danger, right? But realistically, she's not really in that much danger. I mean, yeah, they're doing the crawls, at least to start the season, but it doesn't feel like there's just this real sense of urgency and that at any moment they could get caught or something's going to happen. They said that this is like their 33rd or 37th crawl or something like that. Clearly, they're really good at this, like our gang, of course, and they're not really going to be in that much danger overall. So I don't really understand there. And I really do want to talk about this as well. I really enjoyed Volume 1. I loved the Home Alone nature of the Turnbow Trap. I think that was one of the better episodes of the season. I feel like that's a really underrated episode. Loved it. I really loved it. Then at the end, you've got them going into the Upside Down. And I feel like Volume 1 was pretty good. My issue is, and this is something that's pretty common that a lot of people talk about, Volume 2, like I mentioned earlier in this video, was really tires turning in the mud. It was like, oh my God, we need to progress the plot forward. I feel like the bridge, especially that the penultimate episode, really just did not reveal enough or was not satisfying enough to a point where I was really thrilled to go into the finale. There wasn't some crazy cliffhanger or any sense of real stakes or danger. Sure, Jonathan and Nancy had their little moment. Saw a lot of people complaining online and that, oh, wait, was that a breakup scene? I feel like I pretty easily understood it was a breakup scene. They're just not meant for each other. I really liked that. And I liked all the character dynamics this season. But I just feel like some of these episodes and some of these volumes just were a bit weaker than others, noticeably. Volume 1, I was like, that was pretty good. It feels like we're on a good pace here. Is it as good as the other seasons? No. But Volume 2 was noticeably weak. But then the finale, I'll admit, really picked things up. We're going to be talking about the finale here in a minute. But overall, going to some of the character stuff here, I like the new dynamics. Big fan of the Steve and Dustin thing that we've got going on, where Dustin's kind of in this self-destructive mode where after Eddie died, of course, last season, he's really upset. He's grieving and he just doesn't know what to do. And he's kind of pushing back against everybody that he loves. He's throwing himself into these dangerous situations where he's getting himself like beat up, and he's being ridiculous. He's being utterly ridiculous. Steve's trying to help him, but he's also being a bit out of line, like saying, "Oh, Eddie, wasn't a hero. He just wanted to be a hero. He got killed for no reason." He wasn't fully wrong, but that's not what you say to somebody that's grieving. And I like the way that they came back together because they're best friends. And even in like the epilogue, we see them as best friends. One thing I do want to make clear too, that I didn't say earlier, just before we talk about more character stuff, the season 5 Stranger Things finale was the most that I have ever cried, admittedly, at any project ever. Any movie, any show, it got me. I think I cried like 3 times, straight up. Just truly tears, like, they really got me, man. They got me. Okay, but moving on. I love the Will and Maya Hawke, what's her name, Robin storyline. It makes so much sense they would be together because they're both gay, but it does make sense in all seriousness because of the fact that Will kind of catches her, kissing Vicky or whatever. And of course, we already know that Steve was with Robin, and then, he's the only one that actually knows that. And I like the fact that she helps him learn that he doesn't need to rely on Mike. And it's not necessarily about like the relationship thing. It's more just that he's his own person. He's strong. He doesn't need to always be scared. And that's the way that he unlocks his power. That was just incredible. A lot of people were talking about like the coming out scene. I don't mind the scene, obviously. I think it's like a good scene. It makes sense because, yes, Vecna could use that against him, his own insecurities, his own fears. But it literally could not have been placed in the show by whether it's like the editors or you want to say the Duffer Bros, whatever. It could not have been placed in the show at a worse time. The only time that would have been worse is if it was like in the finale. This should have been like an episode 4 thing, where maybe before he becomes the sorcerer, he's like, "Hey, everybody, listen, my name's Will, blah, blah, blah. I don't like girls." He says this thing. Then he becomes the sorcerer because then he realizes he's powerful. To do that right before you're about to go into the Upside Down and go into battle is ridiculous, and it felt so out of place. And it almost was more disappointing because that was meant to like send us off into the finale. And I was just like, really? And again, I'm not against it or anything like that. I actually think it works really well for his character and it makes sense. They should have did it in episode 4. And I know that technically he learned he had powers. That means that he didn't really know that he had to, get rid of his insecurities and weaknesses because he didn't know he had powers yet. But now in episode 7, he does. Maybe episode 5, he has this scene. You can't do that at the end of episode 7 before our finale. That's episode 8. Just really mismanaged. One other thing that I want to complain about, and I know it seems like I'm complaining about a lot of stuff, but just because I love this show, I really did have a good time with this season. There are just a lot of things I need to point out. Season 1 to 4 of Stranger Things, I feel like just looks so beautiful. It has that nostalgic feeling. There's 2 things that's really missing here. One is that I feel like for some reason, and I can't really like place my finger on it, the 80s vibe is kind of just gone. And I know, again, they're in like this militaristic state, right? Hawkins is literally being like quarantined like it's 2020 or something. And I get that, right? It makes sense. But there still isn't really that charm. I really, really like all the needle drops and all the songs. I think they cooked this season with the needle drops. And from there, I think this is pretty easily the ugliest season of the show visually by a landslide. I've seen someone coin the term Netflix lighting. I think it's just the lighting department. And, I don't want to like punch down on people that are basically making just like probably like a normal salary, like, $50,000 to like $100,000 or whatever. Like, I know that's probably like more on the fault of somebody like the corporate suits or like the Duffer Brothers or, whatever. But the lighting department was really cooking nothing in this season. Like, I'm so serious. Like, Season 4 and Season 3 look so great. I look at the Starcourt Mall and how colorful it is and how beautiful it looks. This season looks really rough, and some of the color grading's off. Again, the lighting looks weird, and I'm not like Mr. Technical, but it's just so noticeably different from the other seasons. From there, let's talk about maybe some of the acting. The best actor in the show is Jamie Campbell Bower. I think he is the most consistent actor in the show. There's absolutely no denying that. Sorry, guys, my my audio thing went off here. But I think there's just absolutely no denying that. He's just ridiculous as Vecna, truly, and as Henry, or as one, whatever you want to say. When he like looks down like this, you could just see all the emotions in his eyes. It's truly terrifying stuff. From there, I feel like Mike, Finn Wolfhard, just gives a really good performance throughout this entire show, especially that emotional ending. And I feel like it's kind of just time to talk about the ending, because we could talk about acting, but these actors have been acting the whole show. You've got your emotional moment with Lucas and Max. God, that was so sweet. And I know that I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but talking about like a 10-hour long season, there's so much that goes on. There's so many different layers between the plot and the characters and this and that. There's a lot. The Lucas Max kind of like what's it called? Not redemption. They're joining together again. Her comeback, whatever you want to say, her waking up from the coma was just awesome. I just loved that. Lucas's acting in that was just so good. So shout out to Caleb there. And it was just such a phenomenal scene. Like truly, I was like, that's why I love this show. It reminded me why I love this show, because those were some rough episodes, quite honestly. I needed to be reminded why I love this show so much. But I think it's time we dive into the finale. They bit the bullet. They killed Eleven. They did. That's it. She's dead. I know that they kind of did an Inception thing where she might not be dead, but I love the way they played it out either way. At first, I thought they were saying, no, she's actually not dead. And I was like, you just completely ruined this entire finale for me. I'm not even joking. Like, I hate to sound like that, but they really did. I thought that's what he was saying. And then I realized, oh, wait. He's kind of just telling this story like maybe that's what happened. Personally, I believe she is dead based on what we've seen, where Callie would have been dead for like an hour at that point, or like 30 minutes, whatever it is. Callie's gone, okay? So she couldn't have put up the illusion. I don't want to get into all that. Like the shockwave kryptonite things weren't even pointed at 11, so she could use her mind powers. I think she's dead. But I love that Mike's the storyteller. I think that's so beautiful. It's genuinely so beautiful the way they set that up, to where he's kind of just giving them hope in a way. And he's kind of trying to cope with his loss. Like, you know what? Maybe she did get out there. Because at the end of the day, he's always been the leader. And I think it made so much sense to just end the show right on Mike. And since season 5 kind of has like this big epilogue, this big final sequence where you almost have like 30 to 40 minutes of just like nothing going on, because it's like, oh, we defeat Vecna, the Upside Down's gone, 11 dies, and then we just move on. The epilogue could not have been more perfect. Like, I really mean that. I'm getting chills thinking about it. I almost cried like 3 times. You've got Hopper and Joyce, of course. The proposal just got me. And I like that everyone's kind of going their separate ways, and that shows the power of growing up, and especially like, it's almost making me emotional. Personally, growing up with this show, and the fact that I'm in an age now where it's like, yeah, I have to go my own separate way now. Like, I've had my time in high school and in college watching the show. Now I'm out, and now I'm free into the world. I like the fact that it's like everyone's still kind of connected. There will always be family, but it really is time for them to go on their separate paths. And I love the path that everybody went on. I think they all make sense. And it really ended in just such a beautiful, peaceful way. And again, you could say maybe 11 got done dirty, but I like the fact that at the end of the day, she made the sacrifice play, because they would never stop hunting her down. I understand that, you know, oh, maybe she could live somewhere secretly. And maybe she is, because again, I guess it's like a 50-50. Oh, is she alive? Is she not alive? But I like that they took such a big swing, and I don't think it could have been better. I'm going to be honest, because again, at first I was so mad. I was like, wait, she's not dead? Then I realized, oh, it's like a story. It's like an assumption kind of. So I really liked that. I like that Inception type of ending where people will be talking about it for years. And one thing I do need to make clear, this show did not Game of Thrones Stranger Things, okay? This was a perfectly fine season for the most part, with a phenomenal finale. And in my opinion, that makes it a pretty good season, okay? Did it have its bumps in the roads? Absolutely. For sure. But overall, I just feel like it was super thrilling. You're ending on this big battle with the Mind Flayer and Dimension X, or the Abyss, whatever you want to call it. The explanation for the Upside Down, I think, was awesome. And I was like confused for a couple minutes, but it's probably just because I'm an idiot. And then like once they drew like the diagram, I was like, oh, it makes sense. It's like the bridge, like the episode suggests, the title, between this dimension and then our world. And I just thought it was awesome. Sure, there's maybe a couple of plot holes. I think some people online, and like, again, I don't want to just talk about like other people online, it doesn't matter, have just been insufferable when it comes to pointing out the smallest of details. One thing I saw someone complaining about is, oh my God, they never brought up why November 6th was the day that Will was taken. Maybe it's just me, but isn't that like just the day he was taken? I don't think Vecna was looking on a calendar like, we're going to do November 6th. I think it just happened to be the day. It could have been November 7th. It could have been November 8th. I don't think it would have made a difference. It could have been July 3rd. It literally doesn't matter whatsoever. I think that's just the day he was taken. He was like, oh, you know what? Today's going to be the day. Like, those are the little nitpicks where I'm like, Jesus Christ, can we give it a break? And like even other little things that people are complaining about, some that I think are completely justified, just to be clear. Some motivations being off, some characters maybe not being fully fleshed out, like Dr. K, who it feels like I don't even know what happened to her at the end. I guess she just disappeared and let everybody go, which, fine, sure. Because to be honest, at that point, I was such an emotional wreck, I didn't even care. But I do need to rewatch this season, and that's also one thing that's very important. A lot of people are saying Volume 2 wasn't that good, and I am with those people. I don't even think it's that good. I think it's I don't want to say bad, but it's below average. It's not even just average. But I think that if I was to rewatch Season 5, now that I've seen the whole season, maybe I would like it more, maybe it would blend a bit better, and maybe things would just be a bit more fleshed out. I'd be able to really process everything, knowing where the story goes now that I've seen the entire show. Again, that finale was absolutely ridiculous. I do think it turns into a bit of like a Marvel movie, but the episode as a whole was just phenomenal. The Steve fake out, I immediately, tears started coming into my eyes. And then he got saved by Jonathan, which was also so perfect. Just a beautiful season of television. And again, it has its faults. I'm not going to act like it's some great season, but I still think it's net good. Like, I think it's a good season. And again, they landed the most important part, that is the finale of the finale. I think that episode, again, is one of the best episodes of the show. And that's saying a lot, because when I look at Dear Billy, when I look at the Battle of Starcourt Mall, when I look at the sauna test, some of the greatest episodes of this show, it's just ridiculous. Even like the Upside Down, even stuff like the Piggyback, the Massacre at Hawkins Lab. There are so many awesome episodes. So to be like within like the top 5, especially after a rough season, I feel like they really needed to pack that punch, and they absolutely did. I could probably ramble about this for so long, but just to kind of summarize overall my feelings about this season, I feel like this still felt like a season of Stranger Things, which is really the important thing to me. There still was so many fun moments with our characters, little plans and plots, and maybe sometimes the dialogue got a bit annoying, more annoying than usual. I saw some people complaining about that. Maybe sometimes there was like some stupid jokes or whatever, but overall, looking back, I had a great time with this season. And again, it's the worst season to me. And usually when people hear the worst, it's like, what? But if you're asking me, hey, what's like the worst steak, okay? I'm still going to love the worst steak. All steak is probably pretty good. If you go to like some nice steakhouse, they're like, oh, what are the worst thing on the menu? I'm sure it's still going to be really good. That's basically what this reminds me of. It's flawed, it's a bit bumpy, but it hit when it needed to hit most. God, that ending's so sad. Shout out to 11, man. And one thing that's pretty funny too that I just want to hit on is that 11 has always been maybe like my 8th favorite character, honestly. But I think that, first of all, I've literally never cried harder at a death. I think that made me really feel the weight of her character. Like, I've always loved her. I've always been there. I've always cheered whenever she came back, whenever she kissed Mike, whatever. But I think that moment really made me realize, wow, she really is one of the people that are right at the core of this show. And I know that's obvious to everybody, but I'm just saying, like, wow, I feel like I almost didn't even appreciate her as much as I should have, because damn, man, that hit me. But overall, good season of television. What am I going to give Stranger Things Season 5? I am going to be rating this season a 3.5 out of 5, aka a 7 or a 7.5 out of 10. I think I lean more like 7.5. I'm just going to stick with 7.5. I think that's fine. Definitely has its faults, but this is a really good season of television to me, and I think that it's satisfying, which is the most important thing. Does it play it a bit too safe at times? Sure. Are there some things that I would have done differently? Sure. Are there some dialogue moments and maybe some little tiny baby plot holes? I guess. But they're juggling a lot, okay? And I think it all worked out and it all kind of landed smoothly at the end. Again, especially because, and I want to hammer this home one more time, they landed it with the finale. And that was something that was going to be crucial because whenever I'm rewatching seasons 1, 2, 3, or 4, even if season 5 sucked, knowing where these characters go at the end of the day is really what was important. So, yeah, I'm very satisfied there. Some weaker episodes, some better episodes, some really great moments, some moments that I'm a bit like on. Maybe the stakes should have been a bit higher, a bit more urgency, but either way, overall, I am thoroughly satisfied. Stranger Things Season 5 was a really good time, despite having a bit of a bumpy road that it's been riding on. But listen, guys, let me know what you guys thought of Stranger Things Season 5. Not going to be saying my ranking right now of the seasons, but that you guys should be on the lookout because I'm going to be making a video about that. But hope you guys enjoy the new setup. Be sure to like, subscribe, because obviously new channel, man. I need some subscribers here. And also hype up this video. It's like a new feature that's on, I believe, maybe it's only the YouTube app. It might also be on the website, but press that hype button also because that really helps me out. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.